Final Fantasy VII has always been billed as a conflict between Cloud Strife and Sephiroth, two duelists who had epic battles. But outside of this superficial viewpoint, one of the things that made their conflict so interesting was how their paths diverged. Sephiroth was what Cloud always dreamt of being. One idolized the other, and for a moment in time, they were on the same path, that of the good soldier. But after they both suffered through tragic events, each was left broken, albeit in different ways. And it was these tragic events that shaped Final Fantasy VII. After he learnt the truth about the years of deception he had endured, Sephiroth had no choice but to isolate himself, entering into a fit of rage. And it was during this fit of rage that he laid waste to Nibelheim. This decision, combined with his prior adoration, created a much deeper connection between Cloud and Sephiroth than any of the other protagonists. And it meant that, even though Final Fantasy VII was not about Cloud's solo quest to stop Sephiroth from enacting his maniacal plans, it did often feel that way. As the compilation built out, this connection became stronger, but it also became less one-sided. Sephiroth always had a keen eye on using Cloud to further his plans. Due to Hojo's experimentation, he was able to manipulate and influence him in a way that he couldn't with any of the other would-be protagonists, and he would have no doubt taken some pleasure in tormenting the person who had managed to once defeat him. But it's clear that Sephiroth never really considered Cloud much of a threat. After his second defeat though, this changed. As we learnt in the novel On the Way to a Smile Livestream Black, Sephiroth realised that he could avoid dissolution in the livestream if he made something his core. To paraphrase the book, Sephiroth thought, "As long as Cloud remembers me, I can continue to exist, within the livestream and on the surface. Even if my spirit disseminates, even if just one fragment of a memory courses around the planet, in the end, I can count on Cloud's consciousness to bring me back." It saw Sephiroth attempt to influence events on the surface so that Cloud would continue to remember him. But during this time, Sephiroth also lost any shred of humanity that remained after Aerith commanded the livestream to help Holy defend the planet against Meteor. It made Sephiroth very single-minded, and this was clear when he was reborn within Advent Children, as everything felt personal. Sephiroth still wanted to complete his original objective, but tormenting Cloud was now a much more pronounced secondary objective, and his focus on this again led to his defeat, as he toyed with Cloud instead of just defeating him. It added weight to their conflict, and their duel was again the showpiece spectacle. But through the production of additional narrative material, it has also become apparent that there was a much deeper conflict taking place that superseded the one between Cloud and Sephiroth. This conflict was between Sephiroth, Aerith, and the planet. Each had their own objective, and they were often at odds with each other. Sephiroth wanted to wipe all life from the planet, including humanity, so it could be harmed to the point where he could wrestle control before using it as a vessel to travel the cosmos and invade other worlds, much like his mother had done in the past. The planet wanted to ensure this didn't happen, but only out of self-preservation. It had no vested interest in saving any particular life form. And Aerith? Well, she also wanted to stop Sephiroth's plans, but unlike the planet, she wanted to do so while also protecting humanity. Within the original timeline of the compilation, Sephiroth failed, Aerith half failed, and the planet succeeded. And this appears to be the crux of what is happening within the Final Fantasy VII Remake, as the narrative focuses around what is essentially a continuation, another attempt by both Aerith and Sephiroth to bring about a new future, something the planet doesn't necessarily want to happen. Based on comments from the developers that have surfaced from the Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania guidebook, we know this game is seen internally as a continuation of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, a fifth game that was meant to release after Crisis Core but was shelved due to changing priorities within the business. It's why Nomura explicitly says the term remake is not meant to be taken literally. It has a much deeper meaning, but until the project is further down its path, he cannot explain what that meaning is. For now, all we can do is hypothesize, something the development team have encouraged, as they believe it will help them to create a more inclusive story as the project moves forward. And in this regard, the biggest clues within this first part revolve around Sephiroth, Aerith, and the planet in the form of the Whispers or the Arbiters of Fate, and their attempts to influence the narrative that has already been written as they either look to change or maintain its continuity. It's why it's therefore plausible that Aerith and Sephiroth are continuations of what we saw within Advent Children. Due to their connection with the livestream, it's possible they have both found a way to either travel through time, into different universes, or have been able to influence the versions of themselves that appear within what we see in the remake. They may not have chosen the same route, but it's established by the end of Advent Children that the mystical powers possessed by Aerith are seen to be quite similar to those possessed by Sephiroth, so if one of them can do it, then really they both can. An example of this was also featured within the On the Way to a Smile novellas. Within these short stories, it was explained that Aerith could have also created remnants of herself to combat Sephiroth's, but she just chose not to, her fear that it would change how her friends remembered her. Instead, Aerith chose to influence events in more subtle ways, which is similar to what we have seen within the remake. This also harkens back to an earlier concept present within the original Final Fantasy VII, where Jenova was not an alien, and was instead the name of an inherent ability found within people. This concept talked about certain individuals, then called Thaumaturges, who could access the Jenova within them, either from birth, like Aerith, or via events that would awaken their latent powers, like Sephiroth. Tetsuya Nomura and Motomo Toriyama were both involved with the formation of the original Final Fantasy VII. Nomura was credited as coming up with the base story alongside Sakaguchi, and Toriyama acted as one of the event planners alongside Nojima, Chiba, Aoki, and Akiyama. It stands to reason that they may want to resurface some of the older ideas that perhaps didn't make the final cut, and this assumption in general may explain why Aerith and Sephiroth have knowledge of that which has not yet happened. In this regard, it means that even though Cloud is still positioned as the main protagonist of the overarching experience, the manner in which he's being influenced by either Aerith or Sephiroth is now more pronounced. Within the expanding conflict that seems to span across time or even universes, Cloud is now a much bigger pawn than he ever was before. And we see this play out within one of the game's earlier sequences. Not long after Avalanche, with the aid of Shinra, blew up the Sector 1 Mako reactor, Cloud was making his way through the sector. He saw the carnage he had helped to cause, but after looking at some of the burning buildings, Cloud was drawn into a nefarious fantasy by Sephiroth, and this scene was very deliberate. As if to introduce that Sephiroth is a continuation of what we saw within Advent Children, it featured an arranged version of The Promised Land from Advent Children, the only time a piece of music exclusive to that film appeared within the game. And to round out this scene, Sephiroth said, "Good, Cloud. Very good. Hold on to that hatred." These words acted as a cryptic nod to the realization Sephiroth made after the conclusion of the original Final Fantasy VII, that as long as Cloud remembered who he was, he could continue to avoid dissemination into the livestream. But this scene also had another purpose. It showed Sephiroth attempting to influence Cloud, pushing him away from his predetermined path, as following the illusion, Cloud ended up wandering down a random alleyway and had to take a much different path than the one he was intending after snapping back to reality. Despite Sephiroth's efforts, Cloud did still end up meeting Aerith, but the scene again showed the conflict that was brewing below the surface. Aerith was already waiting in the correct location, but to ensure fate played out, the Whispers caused Aerith to make a scene, drawing Cloud's attention. Aerith then showed signs of wanting to overstay her welcome, which would have caused a deviation, and so the Whispers attempted to influence proceedings again. It led to Aerith asking Cloud for help, as it was revealed later on that every time she touched or interacted with the Whispers, she lost part of her memory. But in spite of this, the Whispers intervened such that Aerith was forced to withdraw, despite her not wanting to. This action meant Cloud still fell through the Sector 5 church as intended, and was greeted by Aerith upon waking up, and this segment and subsequent segments were quite confusing at first. My hope was that within the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we'd get to see an extension of the original story that would help to fill in some of the gaps and answer questions the original was unable to answer due to either poor graphics or a lack of voice acting. In some regards, this did happen, but most of what we saw felt like a regression. That was until the new context was overlaid, and then it made a lot more sense. It was during this passage of play we started to see glimpses of something being off about Aerith. It started with Cloud seeing a vision of the future that had already come to pass within the original game. Aerith then made interesting assumptions which confused Cloud, and she almost revealed what the Whispers were before stopping herself. This was also the case in many other conversations that involved Aerith. In the build-up to Shinra dropping the plate, Tifa realised Aerith knew more than she was letting on. Aerith also talked about saving Marlene, despite nobody ever mentioning the name of Barrett's daughter. There were also the interactions with Red 13, where he learnt from Aerith about the previous timeline and what would happen if they failed to fight their destiny. And there was, of course, the resolution scene within Chapter 14, where Aerith talked to Cloud in the past tense and told him not to fall in love with her. Everything came to a head though as the game ventured into its final passage. Up until this point, the Sephiroth who had appeared was either an illusion that only Cloud could see, black hooded figures that manifested as Sephiroth, or recollections of Sephiroth from the past. But in Chapter 18, a version of Sephiroth appeared in the present moment that everyone could see. It was at this point that they reached Destiny's Crossroads, and what's interesting about this particular segment is that we saw Aerith and Sephiroth align. They both wanted to defy the will of the planet in order to try and bring about a better ending based on their own objectives. And even though Sephiroth was the instigator here, Aerith encouraged the party to take the leap and push through the barrier the planet had created as a last-ditch act of self-preservation. It was at this point that the party fought against the Whispers. It was noted in our previous video that based on their descriptions, it was alluded to the Whispers being Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett, as it was logical that they would be fighting to protect a known future where they believed they had won. But based on what's come out of the Final Fantasy VII Ultimania guidebook, it's been confirmed that they are instead representations of Kadaj, Yazoo, and Loz, the remnants of Sephiroth who appeared within Advent Children. Rubrum uses a small sword like Kadaj, Crocio has two guns, much like Yazoo does during certain segments, and Viridi has a singular huge glove, much like Loz. And as noted in the Ultimania, they share the same fighting style as the Remnants, with Crocio even having a move called Velvet Nightmare, which was the name of Yazoo's weapon in Advent Children. During the first part of the fight, the background track is also called Arbiter of Fate, Advent, which then changes to Rebirth and Singularity, and as the fight progresses, they combine to form Whisper Bahamut, which serves as a nod to the end of Advent Children, where Kadaj summoned Bahamut Sin to try and bring about chaos. Upon closer inspection, their descriptions also make more sense working in with this theme. It states that they are fighting to protect the future that gave shape to them. In other words, one possible reason they are fighting to protect the timeline is to ensure they still have a chance to exist, and this would explain why they are, in a way, fighting against Sephiroth, as they are each individuals with their own thoughts and feelings. Another is that they are not fighting of their own free will and have been summoned by the planet as strong, mindless entities. An expansion of this could also point to the Whisper Harbinger being a manifestation of Jenova, who was referred to within Advent Children as Heaven's Dark Harbinger by Vincent Valentine. This could tie in with the Remnants, as they had a very strong connection with Jenova, who they often referred to as their mother. The notion of Harbingers is also something that has built out alongside the compilation and beyond. Within Dirge Cerberus, Shulk referred to Chaos as the Harbinger of Anarchy, and within Lightning Returns, there was a trophy called Harbinger of Death that was awarded for killing your last one. Upon the defeat of the Harbinger, Sephiroth appeared to absorb the Whispers and used them in the subsequent fight. This, outside of removing them, was no doubt his plan, as he now has control of another power. But what's also interesting about this fight is that Sephiroth used moves from various appearances across the compilation and also had a new move called Telluric Fury. This was interesting because Aerith collects Telluric manuscripts to help improve her weapon level, and Telluric by the dictionary definition means of or relating to the Earth or planet. This could have been coincidental, but it seems odd that they would reuse the same word for both characters given how meticulous they have been with inclusions elsewhere. Sephiroth's subsequent words then seem to affirm that this is a continuation. He still has visions of traversing through the galaxy and wants Cloud to be by his side so that he can use him, an offer that Cloud rejected. The defeat of the Harbinger also meant Zack Fair survived his fight against Shinra a few months prior, and although it's unclear what role he will play within the next part, it could be quite similar to the role that Aerith is playing now. We learnt from the novel The Maiden Who Travels the Planet that Aerith and Zack connected within the livestream, and after seeing Tifa help Cloud to regain his memories, Zack believed his role was not yet over, so he settled down to sleep in order to save up his energy. He then returned during Advent Children, but there's nothing to say that with Aerith's assistance, he couldn't return again in a similar fashion. This could see him also knowing things he shouldn't know and helping to level the playing field against Sephiroth, who is now much stronger than he was before. And if we're assuming that this game has indeed been a decade in the making, we have to assume these novels, which released alongside the Ultimania Omega and the release of Advent Children Complete, were done so with this game in mind from a narrative perspective. Square Enix has, of course, been rather coy around many of these observations, simply stating that many of the questions fans are asking will be answered within the next part. For now though, how do you guys feel about all of this? Do you believe the Sephiroth that we see within the 7 remake is indeed a continuation of the one we saw within Advent Children, and that Aerith may also be appearing under a similar guise, albeit not quite in the same capacity? If the Whispers have indeed been defeated and or absorbed by Sephiroth, what do you believe the planet will do within the next part to defend itself? Is this where we will see the weapons surface, or will the planet pull out something else instead? So many questions, and so long until we have our answers. Either way, we hope you enjoyed this theory video. If you did, then please consider subscribing to our channel and supporting us on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. Now, this isn't the type of content we typically produce, but if you liked the way it was presented, please do let us know, and we can consider producing more theory-based content in the future. For now though, this is Daryl signing out. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.